Alright, so now we're going to move into database functions. And these are a little bit different than what you're accustomed to. They have a little more power to them because you're using a table. But Excel actually has 12 different database functions that allow you to take your numeric data in a table and evaluate it. One of the things you'll notice about these functions is they start with the letter D. So it could be that it's an average function, but instead of saying average, it'll say D average. So it's a little different. But they're set up the same way as some of these other functions would normally be. So one that's often used is the D average. Another one is the D count. And they both have very similar arguments that you can use. So I'm going to show you how to use some of these. But in order for us to do that, we have to create what we call an output area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over a little bit further. And I am going to take columns O, P, and Q and change their width to 18. Like so. And then I'm going to type, move back up to the top. In O1, I'm going to type in output area. And then I have some other labels I'm going to enter as well. So I'm going to move down to O2, and I'm going to put in average Avon supervisor review, and then average Brownsburg supervisor review. Average main field supervisor review managers for rates double checking slash a lot of stuff to type in. We're going to use all of it. And then we're going to do branch. Avon, Brownsburg, and Plainfield. And the reason we do this is because we're setting up something the system uses. Formulas, parts of formulas as we go along. So moving up to the top, we're going to make a couple little changes. We're going to center this title across here. So like we did before, going to format cells and alignment. We're going to center across selection. Alright. We're going to bold our titles in O8. Back over to my home tab and hit bold. And O11. Alright. And those two we're going to center across as well. So we're going to format cells, center across selection. Center across selection. Alright. We're going to use the Format Painter to steal our formatting from L1. So we're going to come over here and click the Format Painter, and we're going to put that on O1. And then I'm going to move down to L2 and still the formatting there. And we're going to do the formatting on, let's see. I'm trying to decide where I want to put it. Let's do O12. That's not it. I'm going to have to undo. O12 through Q12. So let's see. We need to go back over here and still the formatting again. There we go. I think we're going to bold everything else. Inside. Let's leave it like that for now. That might be good. Alright, so we're going to do d-average and d-count first. Now, I'm going to warn you ahead of time. If you get an error, don't panic, just go with it. These are very particular, and then they mess up. I have not figured out how to fix them. I can sit here and troubleshoot all day and still not come up with it. So I'm going to do d-average first. And it has three arguments. You have the database, you have the field, and you have the criteria. So your database in this instance is going to be your table, which is an A8 through I-22. All right. Oops. No comma. Your field, you're going to put the name of the field in. You're going to put it in parentheses. So I'm going to do supervisor review. And then your criteria range will be O12 through O13. All right. And then I'm going to hit enter. And you see I got an error already. And that's where the problem comes into play. Kind of crazy. So if you get an error, don't panic. Just go with it. I'll play with it. Let's see if I spelled everything correctly. I did A8 through I-22. Supervisor review. O12 through O13. Yeah. Sometimes I get errors in this part, so we're just going to kind of go with it. Alright, don't panic. I'll adjust your grade if it marks off for any of it. I'm going to go down to Q3 and I'm going to try it again. The average. Database is A8 through I-22. The field. Again, it's going to be supervisor review. And then this time it'll be P12 through P13. And see, that one works, so it's just one of those weird things. I can't tell you why the first one didn't work. And then the last one will be Plainsville. So it's the same setup, the average. A8 through I-22 for the database. The field again is supervisor review. And then this particular criteria is going to be Q12 and Q17. And that one works too. So let's try this one more time. I'm going to delete it. Try it one more time. Doesn't work, I'm just going to move on because there's just something about these database functions that sometimes I just don't like to work. And I haven't figured it out. If it's a misspelling, it's one thing, but it's not always a misspelling. Sometimes it just does weird things. Right, we're just going to kind of go with it. we're just going to go on. I'm not sure why it doesn't work in particular, and I'm not going to fret over it too much. I'm just going to kind of move on. Managers with poor ratings. This is a D count, so we're going to do D count here. And you can see that you still do database building criteria. So the database again is A8 to I-22. We're doing supervisor review again. And the criteria for this one is M2. And we'll see this one works. Yeah. Sometimes we're just having all kinds of problems with these things. So let me double check what I did. V count, oh, I have two parentheses. That one works too. Alright, so that's good. Alright, moving down. I'm going to use a SUMIF function a COUNTIF function, and then we're going to do match and index functions to set some of this other stuff up. So your SUMIF function, you're just giving it criteria to look for to sum. So to look for that particular criteria before it adds the numbers together. Alright? So in Q6, we're going to do SUMIF. And you have the range, the criteria, and the sum range that you have to put in. So it's going to be D9 to D22 because we're looking at the ratings. Or the hold on, let's see. Let's read over this a little bit. So we're looking at specialty. Oh, we're doing the total checking and savings. So we're looking for those records that have checking and savings on them. Alright. So I'm going to put a comma after that first argument, and I'm going to tell it I'm looking for checking slash savings. And then once it finds checking slash savings, it's going to move over to column E to add those numbers up. So it's going to be E9 through E22. Right? And then it will add the numbers up. And of course, you can always come over here and apply the accounting number format to it, so it has the right format. To count the number of loan officers, we're going to use the COUNTIF function. Alright. And this one only has two arguments. You have to tell it the range it's going to look in. So I'm going to do D9 through D22 because that's where the different types of accounts are. And then I'm going to tell it to look for the word loan in that column. Alright, so if it finds the word loans, it will count how many of those there are. There are 4 of those. Alright, now comes the hard part. We're going to use a match and index function together. And what it's going to do is we're going to tell it an employee ID number, and it's going to look it up over in our table, and when it finds that information, it's going to pull it over into our table. Alright? So the employee number we're looking for is 18481. And we're going to set this up where you can plug in any of the numbers, and it will move over and look for them. Okay? So to do that, we use two different functions put together. One's the match-in function, and one's the index function. And what the index function does is it looks in a range, it looks for a specific value, or it tells you what the value is in a range, and a row and a column, and then the match function, when you use it with the index function, will tell you the specific thing that you're looking for. So it's kind of, this one's complicated. This is a nested function, so when you put it in, you'll see what it does. Alright, so in Q10, I'm going to type in index to start off with. And the way the index works is you tell it what range to look in, and then you tell it what row and what column you want to pull in. Alright, but we're going to do this a little bit differently by using the match function as one of those arguments. Alright, so we're going to do index. You can see it asks for an array, and we're going to tell it the array is A9 through I-22. And what that does is it pulls the information in from your table, but it leaves the titles off the top. Alright, so it's going to look in that range. In that range, we're going to tell it we want it to match a specific number. So we're going to tell it we need to match that employee number. So I'm going to put the match function in here as my row argument for my index. Alright, so it's going to match Q9, and that's the number that we're looking for. All right, it's going to look in A9 through A22 because that's where those employee numbers are. And then that last argument tells you exactly how closely I want to match it. So I want an exact match, so I'm going to put a 0. All right? I'm going to put a parenthesis there, and that'll be my row. A comma behind it so then I can tell it what column to look in. And I want it to look in column 3 of my table. All right, which column 3 in my table would be the branch. So it's going to tell me what branch they're at. I'm going to hit enter, and it should tell me Avon. All right. So that's how those two functions work. They're a little complicated. They have a little bit more functionality than some of the other ones, so that's why they use them for tables, because it's a little bit easier when you're having to deal with absolutes and things like that. Those actual database functions work a little bit better.